Around here, we need commercial breaks to pay the bills, and we understand if viewers aren't thrilled by a few minutes of advertising, but sometimes you'll be lucky enough to see a commercial that makes you laugh, maybe even cry, or just say wow. The folks at ADWEEK have compiled their list of top 10 commercials of 2011, and for more, we're joined from Chicago by editor for ADWEEK, Tim Nudd. Tim, thanks so much for being here with us.
Hey, Whit, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, we're going to take a look at some of these top ads in just a bit, but first, tell us about the process. You spend a year poring over all of these commercials that bombard us on a daily basis. How do you decide what makes the list and what doesn't?
Well, you know, the first thing I would say about great ads really is that there aren't that many of them. You know, we do watch thousands of them every year. But, you know, anyone with a remote control and a fast forward button would tell you that there's not too many out there that are that compelling. But, you know, some of them are pretty good, but, you know, that doesn't get you 45 million views on YouTube, which is what one of our top 10 this year got. And that's really the first litmus test, I would say, for a great commercial is how many people are sort of watching it voluntarily as opposed to just happening to catch it during a commercial break.
And what I thought was,
you know, as far as the...
Sorry to cut you off for a
Sorry,
second. I just wanted to say what I thought was interesting about your list is it was a mix of everything. It wasn't just a funny commercial. It wasn't just one that would tug on your heartstrings. How do you actually decide and go through and pick out the best from the worst?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different styles, of course, to ads. But I think, you know, when you go through and you really see a wonderful ad, it really has two elements, and that is, first of all, a great idea, and then second of all, you know, wonderful execution of that idea. And, you know, the idea could be funny, it could be interesting, thought-provoking, you know, even heartbreaking or poignant. You know, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on what kind of company you are and what kind of message you're trying to get across.
All right, let's go to the top four. You put together a list of 10. Obviously, we don't have time for each, so we're going to go to the top four. And what we'll do here is we'll play a second, and then we'll get your impressions afterwards. Number 4 was Google Chrome, and let's play a second of this one. All right, Tim, I want to mention something that you write about this one. It's great. This is a quote from your article. You said that the spot invariably leaves viewers choked up and casts Google, often seen as a tyrant, as a facilitator of love. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, Google's a funny company. This is a company that made its vast fortune off of the most, you know, simplistic of advertising, which was little text ads, you know, next to the search results when you're on the search engine. But, you know, in the last couple of years, they've actually become a really wonderful creative advertiser. And, you know, like I said, they really humanize data these days in there. I mean, you're basically talking about, you know, email and Google Maps, and these are all, you know, basically data programs. And they really put the human face on that.
This commercial is about a father who's basically chronicling the life of his daughter in real time as she grows up. And the idea is the pictures, videos, funny stories of her life as she grows up, and then someday he's going to share all of these with her. This is really something unique, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you know, if you look on, if you happen to be on Twitter, whenever this ad is airing during a big football game or something, you know, suddenly Twitter lights up with people like, "Oh my goodness, did you see that Google commercial? I'm crying," you know. So it really, you know, it really cuts through, and I thought, you know, certainly a top 10 ad this year, and you know, Google does a lot of interesting stuff with some really creative agencies. Absolutely,
a good one. Let's go to number 3. This is the CHRYSLER commercial. Everybody saw this one during the Super Bowl last year, starring Eminem. Tell us about this one.
Or the Wendy's.
Yeah, well, you know, this was a 2-minute commercial, which is a bit rare for the Super Bowl. And, you know, this is really just an example of a great story, an advertiser with a great story to tell. You know, they're talking about the company, they're talking about the city, they're talking about a whole industry. And, you know, this was really sort of, I thought, the most hard-boiled ad of the year, telling a wonderful story, a great use of a celebrity cameo with Eminem, who's from Detroit, of course. And, you know, a very grand execution, and it sort of stopped people in their tracks, I think, when they saw it on the Super Bowl.
And everybody loves a good comeback story, and the story of Detroit, you know, the whole country is really cheering for this city. This commercial actually won the 2011 Emmy Award for Best Commercial, didn't it?
It did, in a bit of an upset. I would say, you know, one that we'll get to in a couple minutes might have had a good shot at that. In fact, the one that's number 1 on my list wasn't even shortlisted for the Emmy. which might be a surprise to some of the viewers watching this too.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to number 2. This one from Chipotle. And not only are they good at making burritos, but they make good commercials as well. Let's let this one play for a second.
Okay.
And figures pulling the puzzles apart.
Now, Tim, Chipotle teamed up with country legend Willie Nelson on this one, and really the idea is that Chipotle restaurants, they use organic, locally grown ingredients in their food. They're really trying to send a message that that's the best way to go, not only for your health, but for the environment. Tell us about this commercial, why you selected this one as number 2.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, this is another company with a pretty compelling story to tell. You know, they have been supporting sustainable agriculture for a while. And this was actually a web-only film. I don't believe this aired on television, but it really was a wonderful little stop-motion film showing a farmer who has sort of a small farm, and then he builds it into this big industrial powerhouse farm and pollutes the environment in the process, and then it sort of has a, you know, a crisis of conscience. And it's wonderfully executed visually, and then I think what really takes it over the top, like you said, is the Willie Nelson cover of the Scientist, the Coldplay song. And you know, it's really a gorgeous rendition, and they did a wonderful job with it.
Absolutely.
So I think this is just an example of...
And with a very deep message in there as well. Let's go on to number 1, just in the interest of time here. Everybody loves this one. This is Volkswagen's The Force, and let's play this for a second. We'll talk about it in a minute. All right, of course, here's the kid dressed up as Darth Vader running around trying to mind control everything around the house, and then suddenly, boom, he's able to start his dad's car. Everybody loves this one. It's just kind of that awe moment, the very cute commercial here. Why does this get number 1?
Well, you know, I think this is just one of those ads. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles to it. It's not something that's laugh out loud funny. It's not something that's, you know, wonderfully crafted or anything, but it's just one of those ads that people just absolutely fell in love with when it aired during the Super Bowl. And, you know, since then, like I said, this is the one that got 45 million views on YouTube. I mean, it really is the most watched ad in history.
45 million views, wow. 45
million, yeah. So, I mean, the YouTube views alone probably approaching the amount that it got on the Super Bowl itself, which is really pretty astonishing. And it just, I think what this ad does, it really shows you the power of a nice, simple, charming story, and that you don't need, you know, huge special effects or any sort of wonderful celebrity cameos to make a really wonderful commercial, and I think this was the best one of the year.
Absolutely, some simple storytelling there. Tim Nudd from ADWEEK, thanks again for joining us, and have a happy New Year.
Okay, thanks, Whit. You too.
All right, thanks. And if you want to see what else made the top 10 list, go online to adweek.com.